Right. So the Hachaim's question was on the beginning of the pasuk, where it doesn't say Yemei and it doesn't say Shnei. It just says Chayei Sara. So you're mentioning the end of the pasuk where it does say Shnei, but in the beginning of the pasuk, at the beginning it doesn't say it all Shnei. So, but the Hachaim's question really at the end of the pasuk is, why does it all repeat the whole sentence? Shnei Chayei Sara, all three words are redundant. It doesn't have to say any of those words. And so to that, the first answer the Hachaim is saying is based on the first insight that we gave, that according to the view that Sara lived out her allotted time. So it says, Shnei Chayei Sara, these are the life of Sarah, that Sarah lived out her allotted time. There comes the second interpretation, and it says that no, she actually passed away before her time, and this is what minimized her years. And nevertheless, the verse says, Shnei Chayei Sara, these are the life of Sarah. That means that it's telling us, the Torah is telling us something very interesting about life, that if someone, a righteous person, passes away before their time, Hashem does a favor for them. And what he does is he causes that whatever they would have benefited, if they would have lived longer, Hashem gives it to them. So, for example, Avraham was supposed to live till 180, and he only lived till 175. Hashem probably gave him the extra 5 years. Whatever he would have attained in those 5 years, Hashem gave to him as a present. Same thing as Sarah. Whatever she would have gained from her extra years, Shnei Chayei Sara, she was able to that the years of Sarah's life, meaning she merited that she received the reward for all the years that she was meant to live. And the remaining years, he says, Sha'ar Kiven El HaSha'ar, means to include the extra years, that all of her years, it's as if she brought holiness to all of those years, and she gets merit for that. And the reason is because she could complain and say, or any righteous person could complain to Hashem and say, if I lived longer, I would have done more good deeds. I would have been able to do good deeds. You took my life before its time. So what the pasuk tells us here, Shnei Chayei Sara, that Hashem considers it as if she lived out all of her years with regard to her merits and her rewards. So that's the insights so far into the pasuk Vayu Chayei Sara. We got two insights basically, and according to both, we have the beginning of the verse and the end of the verse, respectively. Now, the Hachaim says one more insight onto this pasuk, and that is that you could divide the pasuk in two, divide the verse into two parts. And this is touching on what David was saying, but going off a little slightly different. And that is that how many years was Sarah in pain in her life? So the Hachaim says she suffered for 100 years. She suffered 100 years. And if you look at the pasuk, it says Vayehi. Vay again means pain. She said Oy Vay, Vayehi, Vayihiyu, and it was pain. Chayei Sara, the life of Sarah, Meyashana, 100 years. So the Hachaim says, you know what it's saying? That it's saying that she suffered by Yiyu is telling you that there was pain for 100 years. Why was it 100 years of pain? She had a baby at 90. Why did she have pain for 100 years? Because number one, the first 90 years she suffered of childlessness. And then she had 10 years of suffering from Yishmael. In other words, there's a big debate of when exactly was Yishmael kicked out of the house. What year did she finally kick Yishmael? So according to this interpretation of the Hachaim, Yishmael was kicked out when Isaac was around 10 years old, and Sarah was around 100, and Yishmael was approximately 94. No, excuse me. Sorry, take that back. Yishmael was approximately 24. Yishmael was 14 years older than Yitzchok. So if this was 10 years after Yitzchok, Yitzchok was 10 years old, so Yishmael would have been 24 years old. So that's the so when Yitzchok was 10 years old, that's when Avraham sent Hagar and Sara out. Again, there's a discussion about this. It's not every the different midrashim could be. There is a medrash that says that Yishmael was 27, and yep, Yishmael was 27, and there might be another interpretation that Yishmael was 17. But this, according to this interpretation, Yishmael was 24. Sarah was 100. Sarah was 100 years old when Yishmael was kicked out. So she suffered because she was nervous about Yitzchok throughout those 10 years that she suffered from Yishmael living there. And so when she finally kicked out Yishmael, Avram kicked him out, finally she had a good life. And so it says first she lived suffering 100 years, and then it says 20 and 7 years were the Shnei Chayei Sara. That's the second half of the verse. Those were the years that she lived, not with Vayahi, not with pain. Those were the good years of her life, because then she felt secure. Batcha bivna, with her son, because Avram kicked out Yishmael, so she enjoyed the last 27 years of her life. So that's a little insight into the pain that Sarah had. And the question is, so what is the pasuk really? Why is the pasuk telling us this? She suffered 100 years, and then she had 27 years of basically happiness. So it seems that the pasuk is, I mean, I see it as an inspiration that a person could live 100 years of pain, but ultimately the 27 years make up for it. Shnei Chayei Sara. These are the years that she lived. These are considered Sarah's life, which our Hachaim doesn't spell it out so clearly, that these are considered the real life of Sarah. But what it could mean is that maybe it was worth all the suffering because she had all of this joy and happiness with her son, and therefore these are considered the years that she really lived. Yes, David.
Yeah, this is very amazing. This 100 years. So he says he's talking about the word Sara Me'ashana, years. So he says that the pasuk right before this in the last week's Parsha, Besuel begot Rivka. So right. He says before Sarah's sun had not yet set, Rivka's sun rose. And this is and it says in Ecclesiastes, the sun shines and the sun sets. And this is hinted to in the initial letters of the word Sara Me'ashana, which spells sun, Shemesh.
Very nice, very nice. So like the sun rises before the sun sets, is that what it means? That Rivka was born before Sarah died?
Right. And the words, and those three words, Sara Me'ashana, spells Shemesh.
Right. Okay, cute. Very nice. Yeah.
You say cute, these are like amazing insights that Hashem put into the Torah. You go, cute. Hashem created the world. That's cute.
The reason I say it is these are little hints. But the question is, so what do you learn from that hint? You know what I mean? Like so it's the sun rises and the sun sets, and Rivka was born before Sarah died. And what does that mean to us? What
And
do you
these three words give that, not only there's an insight of that, but these three words indicate that insight by
right,
having the Rashi Tevis spell the word Shemesh.
right?
So these are like not accidental insights. All these insights are
Not
indicated by
not at all.
gematrias and
I
Rashi
just
Tevis. And
feel it deserves. You have to add to it. In other words, you have to understand them and add meaning to them. This is it's like a seed, and you're sharing with us the seeds of wisdom, but they have to grow. We have to like
that's
paint.
why you're the teacher,
Right.
to
So
show
at
us
this point, it's
that.
cute, and soon it'll be a whole tree. We'll have a whole orchard of it. But at this point, it's a seed. But yeah, no, it's definitely a beautiful insight. I'm trying to think of what what it would be, what message it's telling us. I mean, I guess on a simple level, we should never think that the world is missing. Like Hashem never makes the destruction without initially bringing. I guess it's the concept of Hashem is always bringing the refuah, the healing, before the wound. He brings the healing, the medicine before the disease. And here also you have Rivka being born before Sara passes away. I guess it's a beautiful insight, I guess, if you think about it that way, that Hashem
He
made
says,
sure Rivka would be born before Sara passed away, that in a certain sense in the world, we didn't have a time without a righteous woman. Yeah,
he
yes,
said
Tom.
before Hashem allows the son of a righteous leader to set, he causes the son of another righteous leader to rise. In other words, his successor enters the world. So therefore, on the day that Rabbi Akiva died, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was born. On the day that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi died, Rabbi Ada bar Abba was born. On the day that he died, Rabbi Abun was born. And regarding with Moshe Rabbeinu, before Hashem caused Moshe's son to set, he caused Yeshua's son to rise.
Uh-huh.
So
Right.
before Hashem caused Sarah's son to set, he caused Rivka's son to rise.
Uh-huh.
And that's why it's stated, behold, Milcah too has born children. V'suel begot Rivka. And
Right,
then
right.
the pasuk says about Sarah's passing.
Right, right. Gotcha. Okay, so that makes it. Is that all? Is that part of the commentary, or is that part of the actual words of the Balaturim?
It looks to be the commentary on the Balaturim, but he's bringing from Bereshis Rabbah, Koheles Rabbah,
Right,
and,
right.
and
Okay, fine.
Kedushin 72b.
Okay, so my point is, like, what he's adding there is like to understand the beauty of the insight. Like, I mean, the insight itself, you don't really understand the value of it unless full value of it, unless you know these other sources or you come up with them. But yeah, it's a beautiful insight. Very nice. Thank you. So now comes the next insight of the Hachaim. And so this one talks about the concept of passing by a tzaddik. And so it says Sara passed away, and the verse says she passed away in Kiryas Arba, which is Hebron. And this is in the land of Canaan. And Avraham came to mourn, to eulogize for Sarah and to cry for her or over her. So that's a verse. So again, she passed away in Kiryas Arba, which is Hebron. And Avraham came in order to eulogize her and to cry for her. And of course, then he buys the burial plot in Hebron called the Ma'aras HaMachpelah. So this is verse 2 over here. And the Hachaim says that it says she passed away, and it mentions in Kiryas Arba. Now, Kiryas Arba, the Hachaim says that that's a hint that, of course, tzaddikim don't pass away. But what it's hinting to is that the city that was built from four elements. And the city sometimes is referring to a body, a person. So the person is considered a city. And so he says the city is made of four elements, means the person is made from Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Offer. And again, this is it's more Kabbalistic idea that everything in the world comes from these four elements. There's four main elements in the world. There's the Eish, the fire, the Ruach, wind, Mayim, water, and Offer, which is earth. So fire, water, earth, and wind, or air, you could say air. So in any event, so these are the four things the four elements. And when a person passes away, what happens is the soul leaves the physical body, the elements, the four elements. And the only thing is, that the soul continues to live on. It separates to some extent from these four elements. But then it says, he chevra. So the soul leaves the four elements, meaning the body. But then it says, he chevra, and that is chevron. Chevron comes from the word mechubar, attached. So did it leave or is it attached? So the Hachaim says that when Sara passed away, even though to some extent her soul left the body, and the soul lives on, of course, but nevertheless, by a tzaddik, even though they leave, they're not totally separating. They don't leave. Their bodies don't totally lose life. The body is not totally dead. It's not mushlo me Hachaim. It's not devoid of life. It's because tzaddikim, even after they pass away, they're still alive. They're considered alive. And then he has a story of Rav Achai bar Yoshia. This is a story in Tractate Shabbos. He quotes it here. And the story that he quotes is that Rav Achai, the son of Rav Yoshia, there were people digging near his grave. And Rav Achai reprimanded them and engaged in basically a conversation with Rav Nachman, because the diggers who were digging and they had disturbed him, they called Rav Nachman and they said, got this, we've been digging by a grave and the person buried there is talking to us. So we need a great rabbi to help us out and figure this out. So this is Rav Achai who was buried here. So maybe you should come, Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman came there and he asked, why didn't your body turn to dust? And so Rav Achai answered and he said that when righteous people, or certain righteous people, when they pass away, their body remains intact and it does not decompose. And the Hachaim is bringing from that story that how did Rav Achai, how was he even able to speak? How did he communicate with with Rav Nachman and with the diggers even after he had passed away? It must be that you see that there is some connection that the soul has with the body by certain tzaddikim at least, and it could still speak. So that's the story that Hachaim brings, and he says the tzaddikim, even if they die, the body dies. It's not totally separated from life. It's still there's some type of life left there. And when the tzaddik passes away, he's called Chaim. It's called, and you see it from the story of Rav Achai bar Yoshia. And the reason is because when they were in this world, they turned the chomer of the Yesoidais. They changed the coarseness of these four elements into spirituality in holiness, to the level of Ruchnius HaKodesh HaBenefesh. They turned it into the holy levels of the soul, and through the good deeds and the Torah study that they mishtadel, they try to fulfill, they endeavor to perform and fulfill in this world. And when they reach that level where they transform the materialistic elements into holiness. So what ends up happening is that their body is not so physical anymore. In other words, they've transformed their body to some level of spirituality, and so they're not subject to the typical physical death that regular people are subject to. So that is the powerful idea that maybe if we only learned this one paragraph or sentence, it would have been worthwhile. What a powerful idea that that when Sara passed away, she passed away in that she left the four yesaidos, the four elements, the physical elements, but at the same time, there was still a connection. There's still a connection to them because the body, her body is not such a physical body anyway. It's already been transformed into a spiritual level where the body won't die. So the soul is still there to some extent. And similar to the story of Ravachai, where he was able to speak even after he passed away. This is a very powerful idea about tzaddikim, which we know and we always hear about. The tzaddikim didn't pass away. Yaakov didn't pass away. Moshe didn't. The Moshe didn't pass away, and other tzaddikim. We have this understanding that they stayed, that there's still life, that they're still alive. Tzaddikim, even in their death, the Zohar says tzaddikim, even in their death, they're considered alive. And the idea that the Hachaim says, understand it a little, that it's based on the fact that their body is really still alive because the body is not the physical body anymore. It's been transformed into the soul. It's been transformed into the soul where nothing really, because of their serving Hashem so much, that it's not part of the regular physical limitations. Yes, David.
There's a Gemara called Derech Eretz Zuta, and it names, I believe, 9 people that went to heaven alive. And one of them, what'd you say?
No, okay, I'm listening.
One of them is Eliezer,
the
servant of Abraham that we're learning about.
Okay. So the Hachaim then continues, and he says that if you look in the Rambam, talks about transforming the elements, the 4 elements, and he mentions that each of the 4 elements can be transformed into an element that it's similar to and it's close to. For example, he says, the earth can turn into water. Basically, when water flows over earth or over a rock, so that dissolves, it ultimately dissolves. And water can also turn into air, it evaporates, and combustible gases turn into fire. So the 4 elements can be transformed into other ones. So this is a scientific point, and we could learn from this about the spiritual. So he says, to enable you to understand this, you look at the scientific writings of the Rambam, where the Rambam writes about these elements, and he says that if this could happen to earth, could turn into water, so the same thing could happen with regard to spirituality, that the Yesodais, the elements, could be transformed into the Yesod Eish Haneshama, all the elements of the body. I mean, this is worth billions of dollars right here. This insight that the body, the elements of the body, could be transformed into the fire of the soul. He says, "Vahavein." Think about this, and then he says, "Be'eretz Canaan," in the land of Canaan. Then that's the verse says. So Sarah passed away. So to some extent, she left this physical body, but at the same time, she's still connected to it. There's still a connection there. and Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. And this world is called Eretz. This world is referred to as Eretz Canaan because it's referring to the Yetzer Hara. And the way a person reaches these great heights of holiness is through resisting this Eretz Canaan. So, in other words, that the reason she was able to reach Hebron is because of Eretz Canaan, because she resisted the Yetzer Hara. And how did she reach such a level? By fighting the Yetzer Hara constantly, Eretz Canaan. And so that's the end of this thought. And then Abraham comes and to give a eulogy for Sarah and to cry for her. And that's the end of this verse, basically. The insights of the Hachaim here are about what happens after the death of a tzaddik and how they transform their materialistic elements into spiritual elements. And it comes from initially he mentioned that it comes from Maisim Toivim, doing good deeds and studying Torah, endeavoring to in this world very hard, being mishtadel, trying hard to study Torah and to do good deeds. And then he says, but that you reach this level through Eretz Canaan, which is fighting the Yetzer Hara. So by fighting the Yetzer Hara, you can reach great levels of holiness and perception. So I guess it's both. I guess what the Hachaim is saying is both, that you need to fight the Yetzer Hara. It's like Sur Meira and Asay Toiv, that you fight the Yetzer Hara, and you also have to do many good deeds and study Torah, much Torah in this world, and you ultimately can transform these Yesodis, these elements. Okay, this is we're going to stop here. Sei gesund, everyone. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Bye-bye.